Hello and welcome to episode 3 of my choux pastry series. I've shown you how to make a beautiful choux pastry dough, just like I'm showing in the video right now. That is episode 1. Episode 2 focuses on how to make the perfect eclair. So if you haven't seen those videos, please check them out before jumping into this one, at least for episode 1, where I show you how to make the perfect dough. Now, in this episode, I'm going to show you how to make beautiful profiteroles. And for that, the only difference is that we need a round tip. So I'm piping a few here, leaving a few centimeters in between. And we're going to take things to another level. I'm going to show you how to make a craquelin. This is a crunchy, sugary layer at the top of your profiterole or cream puff. And it's so pretty and it tastes delicious. So I decided to just include that in the video to make it extra special and so that you have everything that there is to know about ways in which you can make cream puffs. It's a super simple recipe and it's just as simple to throw together. We have equal parts butter, sugar, and flour. And to that, I just add a little bit of salt, which really enhances everything and gives the whole profiterole a nice little kick. And some vanilla. You could add any sort of extract that you want. And like I said, we're essentially making a cookie dough. So I've creamed my butter and sugar. Once that's nice and incorporated, I just go ahead and dump all the dry ingredients. And just beat those together. I don't need any fancy tools here. I'm just using a bowl and a spatula. Once everything comes together, then you should end up with a sort of spreadable dough type of paste almost. It's a little bit sticky, so we do want this to chill for a bit. And before we just dump it in the refrigerator, I have a little time-saving trick for you. I have a sheet of parchment and I'm gonna go ahead and dump the whole thing onto half of the parchment. I'm gonna spread this as much as possible with the spatula, but at some point I'm gonna have to switch to my rolling pin. And the thing that we're trying to achieve here is to have a nice and super thin slab of the craquelin. It should be about 2 millimeters in thickness. I know this sounds ridiculously thin, but I've experimented with the thickness, and if you go for something like 3 millimeters, it's already too thick and you won't see this sort of crackling effect at the top of the surface of the choux pastry. So I'm just using my rolling pin to flatten it out as evenly as possible. I'm not really trying to do a rectangle here. I just want the whole thing to have 2 millimeters in thickness. I don't really care in whatever shape this ends up being. And I have my very handy pastry guides here, and I happen to have the 2 millimeter one, which is super practical. If you don't have that, then I'm sorry, you're gonna have to use the old school ruler. So this is ready, and we can't really do much with it at this point, so it has to go in the fridge and chill for about 30 minutes at least, or overnight if you want to. And you know it's done if you can easily peel off the parchment from the top. And I love using parchment for these things because it means that you don't have to roll it on the counter and use all this excess flour. So here's my frozen choux puff, and I'm just trying to cut some circles that will roughly cover the whole thing. They can be a bit smaller in diameter, that's absolutely fine. And I didn't have a cutter that small, so I'm just using a piping tip. You gotta make it work. And again, with the parchment and having chilled the dough, it's really easy to get these cutouts out and cleanly. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yes, you can reuse the leftovers as many times as you like. So don't worry, nothing is going to waste here. So now we're ready to put it all together. I have frozen choux puffs, actually. If you didn't freeze your choux pastry, then you can just put the craquelin straight onto your freshly piped puffs. But I like using frozen choux pastry because it's just convenient. And if you want more tips on that, you can go to episode 2 where I talk about the freezing method. So now I'm placing the craquelin on top of my choux pastry and just make sure it's nicely centered on top. You don't have to press it too much, especially if you're working with freshly piped pastry. Now, because my choux pastry is frozen, I do want to let it thaw for a second. So what I like to do is assemble them and set them aside while my oven preheats. And this, for me, it's about 15 minutes to 20 minutes. So I'm going for a relatively lower temperature, 150 Celsius, for about 30 minutes. I'm giving you a ±5-minute window here because ovens really vary from one to the next. So just keep an eye on them after minute 25. And unless you see that it's browning too quickly, never ever open your oven door. That's a golden rule for choux pastry because then the whole thing will collapse. So if everything worked out perfectly, your craquelin should have this light golden brown color, and the choux pastry has a much richer, darker color. So be patient, just let them cool completely. You can see the crackle effect at the top. I love it. It looks so pretty just by itself. You don't need to do fancy glazing or anything like that. It's very pretty and it's widely used because of it. And not to mention, it's delicious as well. Now, this looks pretty good on the outside. I just need to make sure that it's as good on the inside. And what we're looking for is this hollow interior in your profiteroles. And voila. That is exactly what you want. That means it's ready to be filled with whatever goodness you have planned. And for this episode, I'm just gonna stick with my diplomat cream. Again, I have the link in the description box in case you want to use the same, but the options are endless. So this is one way to fill them. You can remove the top part and just go ahead and choose your filling and pipe it straight into that hollow interior. You can go a little bit over the top, literally, and use as much filling as you like. Just don't forget to put the top back onto it. And these are super cute, so presentable just as they are. There's no need to glaze them. And just to make it super decadent, I'm adding Praline because it goes so well with the creme diplomat. I love using it. So what did you think of this episode? I'm not quite done with the series. I will be coming back with another great recipe for you guys. So please stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe and also share if you find it useful. I'll see you next time.